Thank you, Glenn. My name is Reggie White. I'm an alcoholic. And Glenn, thank you so much for inviting me out and me an opportunity to come out and try to repay a little bit of what I've been so freely given. And Jody, welcome to the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. Either welcome or welcome back home, whichever the case may be. Either way, I want you to know that we love you. We've been holding this seat for you. We couldn't wait for you to get here or couldn't wait for you to get back. And we wish nothing but the best for you. And my friend Deb, good surprise to see you here at the meeting, and congratulations on making it back 4 months again. And I'm so glad that you're here. Alcoholics Anonymous, better for you being here with what we do, Jody and Deb, is what we do in this fellowship. We tell our experience, strength, and hope. What we do is our story. We're a story society. And I was reflecting on a daily reflection, and where it talks about basically that what we do is we get rid of ourselves. You know, what we do is we stop trying to stand out and start trying to become one among many instead of being instead of looking and making it all about me. And that's so important to not say, look at me. Because the way I was raised, it was always look at me. And it wasn't supposed to be in a bad way. It was supposed to be in a good way, right? I grew up in Watts, which is the poorest part of Los Angeles. And my mom raised six boys in that poorest part of Los Angeles by herself because my dad was an alcoholic. My dad drank, wasn't a mean drunk, tough drunk, abusive drunk. What my dad was a cat who couldn't make it home with a paycheck. He would work. He was working at this foundry, right? Found out later on that my dad wasn't who I thought he was. So I was resentful with my dad for a long time. I used to think, oh, he's this stupid guy. All he could do is be this janitor. He couldn't do no better than this. I had no idea who this cat was. What he ended up being was an alcoholic. I just called him a wino at the time. And he was a guy to me who couldn't make it home with the paycheck. He would work until Friday, and then he'd get paid, and he wouldn't make it home until Sunday or Monday. He'd come in, my mom would yell at him, he'd yell back at her, she would cry, and I hated it. And I said I'd never wanted to be like him. I said I was going to always be a better dad than him. And if he loved us, he'd make it home with a paycheck, and he wouldn't make my mom cry. And my mom was my hero, is my hero. And I said, I want to bring her out. I had hopes and goals and dreams, and I want to bring her out of the ghetto. I want to be a millionaire so I could buy her a house. And I wanted to be a lawyer. Me and my brothers, Ralph, Ronald, and me, we were stair steps. And I was the third one behind us. And we wanted to be attorneys, Fight White White Incorporated, and help disadvantaged people. And we all thought my dad was just a loser, and he was stupid, and he was just a janitor, and we weren't going to be. Anyway, just as an aside, it turns out that man was a really smart guy. And back in the '60s, he went and helped integrate a school in Los Angeles that had been all white, and he was one of the smartest kids. And they sent him away to that school. And then he went away to the Korean War. And when he came back from the Korean War, he couldn't even get a job, even though he was a real sharp guy, because that was the climate of the country in those days. And he struggled, because of socioeconomic factors, and it beat him down. And the guy did the best that he could. It took years. It was while I got sober again that I was able to forgive him. But that was an aside. I don't know why that came to my mind today. But anyway, I grew up like that, and I went away to school, and I was one of those successful guys. I always wanted to stand out. I was student body president, A student, always wanting to achieve, achieve, achieve. And I did that all the way elementary school, junior high, and high school. And everything except that social achievement. I couldn't get to that status like Glenn. See, Glenn was one of those cats in school who was always cool, right? He could run his mouth with the girls talking, I'm sure. You guys giggling and stuff. I couldn't do that, right? And I would have traded in everything I'd accomplished just to be cool for a day, just to be Glenn for a day, right? Because I was that guy. While I'd be going through school, elementary school, junior high, and high school, and I'm sitting here and I'm living on third base, right? Because I'm too shy and too scared to try to score with you women, right? Matter of fact, if you guys have been a little bit more forthcoming, you'd have a different speaker here today. If you guys had just come across a look. Anyway, um, but I went through school like that, and I went away to high school. I mean, to college. Still, I hadn't drank anything, hadn't used anything, and I hadn't touched anything other than, up to the point of third base. And I went to school, and I thought I was the world's last virgin. Guys like Glenn were telling me that they had all scored all the way back in junior high, and I didn't know half the guys were lying, right? I thought I was the world's last guy. And my roommates, they had a solution for me. When I finally told them about it when I was in college, I admitted it finally. And they told me this. They said, Reggie, if you want to get off third base, this is what you do. And ladies, these are their words, not mine. Don't get mad at me. They said, Reggie, next time you have a girl up in your room, you bring a bottle of alcohol. As the alcohol goes down her throat, her legs will come open and you'll get what you want. Oh, that's their words, not mine, right? And so, of course, the next weekend I had a dilemma on my hands, right? Because I had this girl up in my room. Wasn't my girlfriend, but her boyfriend was gone home for the weekend, so she was with me that weekend. And and I had that bottle of alcohol. And for the occasion, I brought the best wine I could find. Great year for that wine. It was called Silver Satin, probably made a couple of weeks before then. So I got that bottle of Silver Satin. I got the girl up in my room, and we're both so nervous we don't know what to do. I don't know which of us was more scared, nervous, right? But I had that dilemma because I didn't want to be like my daddy. I said I would never drink. I said I don't want to be a wino like my daddy. I said I want to achieve things. I have goals and hopes and dreams. But then I thought to myself, well, wait a minute, my daddy was stupid. My daddy was a dropout. I didn't know he was a smart guy, a student and stuff. I said I could do this stuff because I'm a smart guy. He wasn't a smart guy. Plus, I was going to get off third base. I don't care what happened, right? So I did exactly what they told me to do, and I fed her that wine. It worked exactly like they said it would. But the problem was I drank some myself. And when I drank some, things started to happen. My mouth started going. Started being able to dance, at least in my mind. I got real close to cool. I got close to being like Glenn, right? I got real close, that close, and my life took off. I was still very smart. I was still an A student. I was still good in track. I was still good in baseball, but I got to apply to law school, right? We were going to have that law firm, White Incorporated, but I was too busy drinking and using. Because in addition to the drink, I was in college in the 70s. We added in non-addictive marijuana. We added in Quaaludes. We added in hash and hash oil. We added in some angel dust. That's what they call PCP today. We added in all kinds. Whatever they had, LSD, you name it, we had it in the 70s. It was a turbulent time, and it was a great time, right? And so I went through school like that, but I was totally successful. Came out of school, great jobs. I was manager. I was vice president, manager in all these different companies, and I'm doing really well. And then I started adding in additional things that I shouldn't have, right? That I'd said I never would touch the hard stuff. And that took me down. And I started to lose things, bank accounts. I started to lose jobs. I started to lose girlfriends. I started to lose license, insurance, and registration. I started to lose the ability to be able to pay my bills. And I thought in 1984, I said, I better regroup. I'm a really successful guy. So how do I regroup? I moved back to my mom's house, right? This successful guy. And I moved back in with my mom in 84. And by 1985, all 5 of my successful brothers moved back in there as well. And all 6 of us were drinking and using. And my mother had a nervous breakdown in 1985, and she almost died. And then by 1986, 2 of my brothers disappeared. First, my brother Ronald disappeared. I didn't know where he went. I didn't care. Then my brother Ralph disappeared. Don't know where he went. I didn't care. Then in December of 1986, I was standing on the corner of Hollywood and Vine. I drank my car away, so I'm standing there waiting on a bus, and this stranger walked up on me. I didn't know who he was, but then he opened his mouth and he said, let's do lunch. And I looked, and it was my brother Ronald. And see, he was a stranger because he looked so good. He had been doing exactly what I had been doing. And now I look at this guy and I hardly recognized him. His hair was cut. His skin was clear. His eyes were bright. He smelled good. His clothes were sharp, and he had a confident look about him. And the dude came to me, and when he said, "Let's do lunch," I said, "Sure." And we went this, and that was strange. We hadn't done lunch in years. We went and had lunch, and he broke out a huge wad of 20s to pay the bill. And I looked at him and I said, "Dude, you look really good. What did you do? What have you done?" He said, "I went to this place called the Salvation Army Harbor Light Center." He said, "It's on Skid Row in downtown LA." Said, "I no longer drink and I no longer use. And if you ever want to stop doing what you're doing, I can get you in there too." And I looked at my brother and I thought to myself, "Man, you were scandalous out there. You need that place. Can you loan me $50?" He said, "No." I said, "You son of a bitch." And he did. And I just left, right? But the seed had been planted. Um, so then, a couple of months later, February of 1987, I'm standing there or rather, I'm in this girl's car for 2 weeks. 2 weeks too long. I have this girl's car. Um, I hadn't shaved. I hadn't showered. I hadn't brushed my teeth. I hadn't combed my hair. Hadn't changed clothes. I was in a suit that I'd had on after I'd left work one day and went and got her car. Went to LA. Didn't make it back. I owed a bunch of people money because over the course of these 2 weeks, I also borrowed money from a whole bunch of other people. And so now I got people looking for me. I got this girl's car, and I said, "At least let me return this girl's car." And I thought of Ronald and I thought of Ralph. I couldn't reach Ronald, but I did reach Ralph. I asked him to return the car for me. He said the only way he'd do it is if I went in this Harbor Light place. I didn't know what the Harbor Light place was, but he told me if I go in there that nobody can reach me. They wouldn't tell anybody I was in that place. And I thought, oh, a safe place. So on February 7th of 1987, I walked into the lobby of the Salvation Army Harbor Light Center, more dead than alive. I stank so much that I don't know how they stood having me in that lobby and how that man sat there and took my intake papers. But he let me in there. They took me up to detox. They called it primary, and they let me sleep for 7 days. They took those that dirty, nasty, filthy suit from me and threw it away and gave me some fresh clothes after they let me shower. Then, after 7 days, they sent me down to this thing they called AA meeting. They told me to go to this AA meeting and sit in the front row because I was something that they called you. I didn't know what that was, but I sat in the front row, and this tall white guy with a beard who had on a suit looked a lot like me. He looked lame as heck, and he was standing up there sharing. He was pounding on the podium, and he was saying, "If you want what I have, you will get this Bible. It's up on this podium. You will read it from the beginning, and your life can change. And you'll get a sponsor, and your life can change." And I looked at that dude, and I thought to myself, "Man, you are lame. I don't nothing you got." But then I had a real quick second thought. I thought to myself, "Wait a minute. He probably is not going to spend the night here at the Harbor Light Center like I am, and he probably is not going to. He probably has a car because he's not walking down Skid Row this time of night. He probably has a home that he's going to, and he might have a woman up in that house, and he might have a job to take." See what I mean? I started to think maybe I want a little bit of what this guy has, right? So I asked him to be my sponsor. He bought me that Bible. He handed it to me. He said, "Read it from the very beginning, and you could be one of these people that can get this thing." Because they said only two of us could get it, right? I don't know what it was, but if it was a it to be gotten, I was going to get it. So I took that Bible. I looked at it. It said Alcoholics Anonymous on the front of it, and I opened it up, and it said there is a solution. And I had my first message of hope. And I said, "Okay." But he said, "Read it from the beginning." I'm a sharp guy. I know what to do. And I'm going to get an A in Alcoholics Anonymous and be one of those two people who get it, whatever it is. And so I took that book up to my room, started at the beginning, and in the doctor's opinion, it said the only hope for the chronic alcoholic is total abstinence. And you lost me right there. See, because you can't slip big words by me. I'm a sharp guy. I know what abstinence means. I know what total abstinence means. And I didn't come to you for total abstinence. I came to you so I could get that other stuff off my back, that hard stuff. I came to you so that I could stop drinking hard liquor because I throw that up and I black out on that. I thought you guys were going to teach me how to drink wine like a gentleman with my meal, maybe smoke a little non-addictive marijuana. I thought you guys were going to show me how to pay my bills and to hold on to a job. I thought you would show me how to keep a car, maybe keep a couple of girlfriends on my arm, right? But you guys are coming. I know what total abstinence means. You want me to stop everything. Who does that? and you lost me right there. And I would have walked out of that place, except I didn't have anywhere to go. So I stayed in there that night, and 30 days later, they gave us a pass. And we went down to this place called 9604 South Figueroa, which is an Alano club in South Central Los Angeles. An Alano club, Jody, is an Alcoholics Anonymous club. It's a club where they have AA meetings. So we went to this place on a Saturday afternoon, and they had a noon meeting going, right? And me and my two biggest friends went from the Salvation Army. We walked in that place, and we were hit with a wall of laughter when that door opened. People were laughing. They were yelling at each other across the room. They were greeting each other. We walked in, a bunch of old timers hugging and shaking hands. And there was a bunch of guys over here, not squares. They look like cool guys, and they're shaking hands and hugging. I didn't like the hugging part much. I'm like, okay, let me see. And then I looked over on the far side of the room, and it was a gang of really good-looking women. And I'm like, okay, maybe we can do this thing. And so we walked in, and we sat in the very back row, where it was, later on I found out they called it death row, right? And we're sitting there, me and my two big friends, and I look to my left, and there's the coffee pot, right? That coffee pot was big. It was a silver one. It was shining, looked like it was glowing. And man, I wanted some of that coffee, man. And it was next to it was a plate, how high with cookies. Looked like not the 99-cent store stuff. It looked like Oreos, like the good stuff, like some good. And I wanted some of those so bad, and some of that coffee so bad. But it was a crowd over there. And see, I don't like being embarrassed. Matter of fact, I cannot be embarrassed. And there was a crowd back there by the coffee pot. And there was a guy standing behind the counter. And I thought, what if I go over there and pour a cup of coffee and that guy asks me for a quarter? See, I ain't got it. And what if I pick up a cookie and they ask me for a nickel? See, I don't have that either. See, the condition I came to you guys in, I had absolutely nothing but that dirty, nasty suit that I had on my back that they took and threw away from me. And I don't know how this old timer read my mind. I don't know how she knew I was new. I don't know how she knew what I was thinking. She came all the way through that loud crowd, all the way to the back of the room. And she had to lean in real close so I could hear her. She leaned in next to my ear and she whispered, she said, baby, go over there and get you some of that coffee. Go over there and get you some of those cookies. Take all you want. It's free. And then she smiled and winked. And I fell in love with the guy because of the kindness of strangers. See, I don't know what they said from the podium that day. I didn't understand it. Mental obsession, physical allergy, all that. I didn't know what they meant, but I knew kindness when I felt it, right? And then the newcomers jumped up and they said, oh, you're the most important people in the room. Then they gave out 30-day tips, and we jumped up and went and got tips, and you guys were cheering for us. Then after the meeting, everybody came up to me. They're shaking my hand and telling me to keep coming back, and they remembered my name. Man, I fell in love with you guys. I started doing exactly what you asked me to do. I started volunteering for everything. I started cleaning ashtrays and setting up meetings. I started going on panels to prisons and taking panels downtown to Skid Row. That was in February of '87. I came to you guys. And by November of 1987, we started the Never Too Early Big Book Workshop. My two brothers, Ralph and Ronald, along with our good friend Strange, came up with the idea, and there was 13 of us around my mom's dining room table early on a Sunday morning. And we're sitting there with our big books open. And my mom gets up to go to church. And she walks out and sees all these alcoholics with our books open. And she almost cried. She was so thrilled you had brought 3 of her sons back to her. And then December of 1987, on Christmas Day, my baby brother came to the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. 1987 was a great year in the White household. So I now have 3 brothers in this fellowship. And right now, I have 3 brothers with 35 and 36 years of sobriety in this fellowship. And life took off for me. We started working the steps precisely as they're outlined in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And life took off for me. See, I came in here on a really high bottom. I hadn't lost much work-wise. I had great work history, and I hadn't lost a lot. And I picked up right where I left off. And so I got a really good job. Then I got a girlfriend really fast. And she had a stepson, so I got a ready-made family. And we moved in together, and I'm already a better dad than my dad has ever been. And we're going to AA dances and picnics, and we're going to meetings, and we have a meeting routine. And I'm taking my panels downtown, and Christmases are great. Thanksgiving, all of Alcoholics Anonymous is gathered at the White House or at my mom's house because anybody that has nowhere to go, you're welcome to come to the White House. And it was that way for years. And then the richest man in California handpicked me to bring his company back from Atlanta, this guy named Eli Grove. And so now I have a house in Atlanta, a house in Los Angeles. I'm making six figures early in sobriety. And I have 6 departments, 250 employees working 3 shifts, 24 hours a day in Atlanta. I'm flying back and forth. I got my family here in West Hollywood. We had moved out of South Central, and life is so good and so busy. And then it got even better. A miracle happened. My girlfriend got pregnant. Why is that a miracle? Well, I barebacked it all my life. Never got anybody pregnant. I'd never used protection. I didn't think I could have a kid. So now I got my miracle baby, Angela Marie White. And the best thing I've ever been from that day to this is a father here in Alcoholics Anonymous. And don't let the life that AA gave you get in the way of your AA life. Don't let the life that AA gave you get in the way of your AA life. See, Bill puts it differently. He says if an alcoholic fails to perfect and enlarge his spiritual life through self-sacrifice and working with others, he won't be able to survive the certain trials and low spots ahead. If he can, he'll drink it. If he drinks, he'll die, and all hope. What did that look like in my life? Well, I'm flying back and forth LA to Atlanta, so I stopped going to meetings because I couldn't find good meetings. Now, I'm not working with a sponsor, and I'm not working with sponsees. I'm not no longer going to Never Too Early Big Book Workshop, so I'm not working steps every year like I had been doing. I'm no longer taking panels to prisons or panels downtown to Skid Row. I stopped doing all the things in Alcoholics Anonymous that had gotten me all the things that Alcoholics Anonymous got me. Don't let the life that AA gave you get in the way of your AA life. Then the trials came that Bill talked about. My little girl, my wife thought she saw a seizure, took her to Children's Hospital. They kept her for 2 weeks. They couldn't find even induce a seizure. A doctor gave her medication they shouldn't have been given to a child that age. It started eating her kidneys up. So now my daughter's being eaten alive from the inside. For 4 long months, we're back and forth trying to get them to switch off the seizure medication, and they wouldn't do it. My daughter is being eaten alive. All she could do is hug me and say, Daddy, tummy hurts, tummy hurts. She didn't know what else to say, and I couldn't stop the pain. I was helpless. I finally said, enough of this. We took her to the best hospital in LA, Cedars-Sinai Hospital. When we got to Cedars-Sinai, they took one look at her and said, she's in too much pain. We have to intubate her. They put her in an induced coma. When they put her in that induced coma, she was in there for 3.5 weeks while they tried to figure out what was wrong with her. All of AA gathered around, all the church people, all of my family. We weren't alone for 1 single second, and neither was my daughter during that 3.5 week period. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week while she was in ICU. I started praying again. I had stopped praying, but I'm praying now. God, please take my life, save my daughter. Looked like my prayers were answered. Doctors came out and said, we figured out what's wrong with your daughter. All we have to do is exploratory surgery and we can fix her. I said, open her up. They opened her up. When they opened her up, they killed her. When they killed her, it felt like God left me. And I totally shut down, guys. I totally shut down. I never went back to that dream job, not one day. I never even called them ever again. And somehow they made it to the funeral. I don't even know how they heard about it and paid me for a year and a half. Anyway, what I used to say is I relapsed because my daughter died. I'm a cautionary tale here in Alcoholics Anonymous. See, that's not true. We know what to do when we have tragedies here in Alcoholics Anonymous. We get to the podium and talk till they drag us off of it. We call our sponsor and we call sponsees. We work with new people. We get to in the middle of the herd. We sit in those meetings till they turn the lights out and drag us out of it. We sit in the middle till you guys can love us back to life. But I couldn't hear you guys. Neither could my wife. Neither one of us. We were both in the fellowship and we couldn't hear a thing. We totally shut down. And I was just so angry. I was so angry at God. I was so angry all the time. Cursing God. F you, God. Why somehow I was like, why would you let her be tortured like that? Somehow the 4 months of torture was worse than the dying. If she had to die, so be it. But why were the the last 4 months of her life, nothing but pain. And I wrapped that anger around me like a warm blanket on a cold day. And I lasted 11 months like that. Then I finally went to a bar and I drank. And when I drank, it came back on me really, really hard how much of an alcoholic I was. I'd done so many other things, I'd forgotten how much of an alcoholic I was. And then it ran up on me. I realized that just how bad it was. And I only drank for 2 weeks. And then she came in the bar. And you know her when she sat at the bar, short skirt, long legs, low cut, gorgeous face, tilted her head just right and gave me that look. You know that look, and ladies, you know that look when you're giving it. And I tilted my head right back and gave her that 4-word interview. Do you get high? She said yes. And I was off and running, doing what I really wanted to do and what I really knew I couldn't do. And I only did that for 2 weeks. And then it was the anniversary of my daughter's death. And I said, I need to see God. He needs to explain some things to me. We need more angels down here. Does he need some help? Why would he let us do all this to each other? And I took a bunch of pills and I killed myself so that I could be back with my baby where the last place I had been happy. And they wouldn't let me die. God wouldn't let me die. They pronounced me dead on arrival at the hospital, but God pulled me back. And the second worst day of my life is when I came to in that hospital. I'm looking up at everybody that loves me. My mom, my brothers, people in my family, people from the fellowship, people from the church, all of my friends. And now I'm totally ashamed and humiliated, along with being angry at God, angry at all of you guys. And I was just so hot. I was so, and was I to know what the next 16 years were going to be like, I'd have tried to commit suicide all over again. And I lasted the first 5 to 7 years I spent destroying my family. I didn't do anything to hold my family together. And that's a huge regret in my life. And we scattered, me and my wife, my stepson. We all just hurt and we were in pain and we scattered. And after about 5 to 7 years, I tried to get back. More specifically, I tried to get back to Never Too Early Big Book Workshop. Debbie, that's why we get a home. Because, of course, I wanted to get back home where I knew people loved me. I wanted to get back to Never Too Early Big Book Workshop. And I wanted to get back with my pride and integrity intact. So I wanted to at least have a year because my brothers, we all came in here together. And they had all these years of sobriety now. And I'm just so ashamed all the time and so angry. And I wanted to at least have a year so I could hold my head up. So if you're Reggie White and you want to get back with your pride and integrity intact, how do you do it? Well, I'll sneak back to Alcoholics Anonymous. How do you sneak back? Well, I'm in West Hollywood. All of my family and friends and everybody is in South Central LA. So I go to these strange meetings where nobody knows me. I go to meetings late after they ask for newcomers, so I don't have to raise my hand because I'm too ashamed now. And then I leave meetings early before they give out tips because I'm too ashamed to take a tip as well. So now I'm at meetings, but I'm not in meetings. And I keep relapsing over and over and over again. And I'm doing the recovery home dance now. But I'm a sharp guy. Don't forget that. How did I get sober the first time? I took the step. Told you people, one man with this book in your hand. We believe and we hope it contains all you need to begin. That's in a vision for you. So I had a book, and I've taken people through the steps. I'll sponsor myself and take myself through the steps. So I take myself through these strange meetings where nobody knows me, and I'm taking myself through steps 1 through 4 in that book. Do a great 4th step, find somebody, do a stranger, do a tremendous 5th step, skip to steps 12 and 13, and keep relapsing over and over and over again. I got tired of that. Because, see, I'm still saying I'm not hurting anybody other than me, right? Even through all these relapses, all these recovery homes, all of this tragedy. But I'm a high bottom guy. I'm a guy who's still working. I'm still paying my own way. I'm a functional alcoholic, right? God said he needs to slow me down. 2009 gave me glaucoma, 0% vision in my right eye, 30% in my left. Now I can no longer drive. Now I can no longer work for anybody. Now I learned what it's like to be a low bottom drunk. Now I'm a public assistant, and I'm supplementing that by selling plasma twice a week. I'm walking the streets like a zombie. Monday, same as Friday, same as my birthday, same as Christmas, and no hope at all, no goals at all, no dreams anymore. And thank God that God doesn't make misery comfortable. June 24th, 2017, God saw fit to have my so-called girlfriend girlfriend steal my mother's car out of her driveway. She stole the car out of the driveway. And my baby brother ordered that. See, I'm in my mom's house. A mother is only as happy as their most unhappy child. My mother just didn't want to give up on this piece of land. She thought that there was some hope left, that there was something left in this piece of land. My mom rented me a room in her house. You heard me, rented me a room. She didn't just let me live. She had me renting a room. She wouldn't talk to me or look at me, walk by me and shake her head. My brothers, Ralph, Rod, and Ronald, who were in the fellowship, they come in, hey, Ralph, hey, Rod, hey, Rod. But me, she just shake her head and walk by me. She just didn't want her son out on the streets homeless. So she would rent a room. And I'm in that house, and my baby brother pushed the door open. Where's mom's car? And I said, I don't know what you're talking about. And he said, you have to leave my mother's house right now. And I sat up, I looked behind me, and my mother was standing there looking terrified of me. Her son, who loved her more than anything in the world. And it felt like my soul left. And I made one right decision that day. I made a decision to go to that same rehab I've been to twice in a 5-year period. And I called my sponsor, who I hadn't talked to in years. I said, Rico, can you get me in the acting? And he said, sure. And 2 days later, I was walking the grounds of that rehab. I'm walking with my head down because I always walk with my head down. Now, I hadn't looked anybody in the eye in years because I'm so humiliated. And I just don't have it in me to raise my head up. And he walked up on me and he said, Reggie, pick your head up. He said, you're a child of God. You don't have a right to walk with your head down anymore. He said, God wouldn't have put you through everything he put you through for 16 years to leave you out there. And I looked up at Rico, and before I could stop myself, the word slid out of my mouth. I said, would you please take me through the steps? I finally asked another man for help the first time in about 20 years. And he said, yes. He said, no, rather, actually. He said, no, I won't take you through the steps. He said, I'll go through the steps with you, because that's the kind of sponsor I got. And we started racing through the steps because God gave me the gift of desperation. See, thank God that God doesn't need my permission to work in my life, because something changed in me that day. Something clicked and something changed. And I didn't know it then, but looking in the rear view mirror, I could see. I stopped worrying about me. That everything I've been thinking about while I was walking with my head down was, all these, see, I was always most likely to succeed in every rehab I've been in, most likely to stay sober, right? And here I am back for a third time, and I'm walking thinking the staff, they're all going to be, oh, you're back here again. Oh, I didn't expect to see you back. Oh, what are you going to do different? Oh, and I didn't care. I didn't care what anybody said about me anymore. I didn't care. I didn't worry about me anymore. All of a sudden, something changed. Something clicked in me. And I didn't think about Reggie anymore. And all I thought about were the guys that were in there. And I said, from this point forward, I'm just talking to the new guys. I'm talking to every single person in there and giving them my experiences, whatever those were, good and bad. And that's what I did the entire time there. From that day to this, I've never had one single second that the obsession has hit me, because I continue to do every single thing that's necessary, like only the dying, because God gifted me with the gift of desperation. Like I said, thank God that God doesn't need my permission to work in my life. And I walked out of that rehab, still getting God under God's grace, God pouring grace on me, because I came out of there on the third step. And I walked in the Never Too Early Big Book Workshop with less than a year of sobriety. I walked in there with 90 days of sobriety, with my head held high. And we were right on the third step prayer. And I was right on the third step. And that was 300 of us on our knees, holding hands together in that room, doing that third step prayer together. Me to a God that I was cursing on a daily basis, and that I had absolutely no belief that he could work in my life. Absolutely no belief that he could do anything for me. But I believe that you guys believe. And that was enough to start. And then I got to the fourth step. And Ralph, my brother Ralph, has a saying on the fourth step. See, when you have tragedies in your life, if you've been raped as a child, molested as an adult, if your daughter, 4.5 years old, is tortured and killed, murdered, tortured and murdered, and she did nothing to nobody, and neither had I. When you have a situation where you have totally justified anger, what we say is, do you want to be right or do you want to be free? Do you want to be right or do you want to be free? And I chose freedom this time, and I put God on that fourth step. And when I put God on the four-step, things started to look a little bit different. I realized that God had not given my daughter, the medication that made her sick. That was a doctor's and children's hospital. I realized God didn't make that decision to kill my daughter. That was a doctor's at Cedars-Sinai Hospital. Okay, wait a minute. I prayed though. God, please take my life, save my daughter. Well, when did God start working for me instead of me working for God? Okay, well, wait a minute. God gave me glaucoma. He took my vision away from me. He took my ability to make a living away. Well, God left me with 30% vision in my left eye. And I had been doing taxes for over 40 years. And shockingly enough, it turns out when I stopped drinking and stopped using and worked the way that I have the ability to work, I turn away clients. I turn away business. I have so much more business than I possibly can handle, and I'm totally self-supporting by my own contributions. Okay, but I was so angry at God because he only let me have my daughter for 4.5 years. He only let me have Angie for 4.5 years and snatched her out of my life. Okay, but when I look at the world differently, the world looks back differently at me. And I prefer to look at it like this. God held Angie in his arms before he put her on this earth. And he said, you're going to be tortured for 4 long months at the end of your life. Then you're going to die a horrible death. What I'm going to do for you, I'm going to give you to a man that's going to love you every single day of your life. And he gave her to me. My miracle baby, the baby that I didn't think I could have. He gave me Angela Marie White. And the way I prefer to look at it is this. Not that he only allowed me to have her 4.5 years, but that he allowed me to be a father for 4.5 years, which are the best 4.5 years of my life. And then with my mom, I had things to resolve with my mom. See, my mom, thank God that God has still allowed my mom to be alive right now. On February 1st of this year, she turned 93 years old. And my mother has all of her faculties, mentally and physically. She's all here, thank God. And so he has allowed her to live long enough for me not only to make an amends, but to continue to make living amends. Because guys, new friends, it turns out, even though my mom was the last one to give up on me, she held out hope long after everybody else had given up on me. Everybody gave up, and she was the last one to finally give up on me. And so, but when I got back, she was the last one to get on board. She was the last one to believe that I was still here. Even after 5 years, last year, at the end of last year, up until that time, there was still always times where I would have to just say, Mom, I'm not that guy anymore. Mom, I'm not that guy. I had to be patient because, new friends, even though we know that we're well, that doesn't mean that all the people around us are well. Because we are like a tornado. We make people sick, all in our orbit, all in our lives, right? And so my mom, finally, though, at the end of last year, I walked in her house. I walked in and she said, hey, Reggie. And I start laughing. And she said, why are you laughing? And I said, Mom, I waited 20 years for you to call my name. And she got it. She understood. And then this year in my birthday card, she wrote in there, you're the center of my universe. And that doesn't happen to God. That does not happen, guys. And finally, I want to talk a little bit. God, for once, I'm running way early. I don't understand how that happened. Lynn, I'm sorry. But I want to talk just a little bit about I always said I wasn't hurting anybody other than me. And my niece, my mom told me at the end of last year also, she knows too much about this program. She said, you owe your niece an amends. And I said, for what? I said, what did I do? And she said, back when that car was stolen out of the driveway, he paid $480 to them. I think I'd had about 4 years at that time when she did it a couple of years ago. And I said, why'd you wait 4 years to tell me this? And I called my niece and I said, I need to make these amends. I have to pay you this $480 back. And my niece said, no, Uncle, I'm just so happy that you back. And I said, niece, if I don't pay you this money right now, I might be drunk tomorrow. And she hurried up and took the $480. But I asked her that question that we asked. I said, is there any other way that I harm you? And she surprised me. She said, yes, Uncle, there is. She said, Uncle. I said, how did I harm you, niece? She said, Uncle, every holiday when Angie and I were kids, but she grew up with my little girl, Angie. And she said, all of us were little kids together. She said, every holiday, every Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's at Grand's house, she said, you used to put all the kids on your lap. You used to spread us out on the couch, and you would sit there and you would tell us stories every holiday, all day long. You would tell us about your adventures with when you were our age, when you were a really little boy, and you had adventures with Santa Claus and the Tooth Fairy and the Easter Bunny, and you guys flew all over the world having these adventures, and we would laugh and laugh and laugh all day long. She said, Uncle, those were my favorite parts of every holiday. She said, Uncle, I wanted you to tell those stories to my kids, and I wanted you to tell those stories to the grandkids. She said, Uncle, you were gone for 16 years. You were gone so long, I was scared you would never make it back to us. She said, Uncle, you would be in that room, and the door was so close I could touch you. And I would pray that that door would open and you would come out so I could hug you and tell you I love you. I would pray it would open and you would come out and hug me like you always did and tell me that you love me. Thanks to you here in Alcoholics Anonymous, my niece has her uncle. Thanks to you here in Alcoholics Anonymous, my mom has her son back and my brothers have their brother back. Thanks to you here in Alcoholics Anonymous, I have an opportunity, one day at a time, to pay back just a little bit of what's been so freely given to me. I want to thank you, Glenn, for inviting me out today. My name's Reggie White. I'm an alcoholic. Thank you for allowing me to share.